We all know Alex Pereira was a killer kickboxer who followed Adesanya all the way to the UFC and stole his belt. But it's what Alex has gone through leading up to this that makes his story so special. As a kid, Pereira grew up in Brazil, growing up in the poverty-stricken favelas. His first job was at a tire shop, working for a barely livable wage, and as a child, Pereira was on a very dangerous path. He started struggling a lot and grew into becoming an alcoholic. But it was in 2009 where everything changed. He turned to kickboxing to get his life back on track. Man, Pereira's rise in kickboxing was crazy fast. He won Glory 14, the middleweight contender tournament in March of 2014, knocking out Dustin Jacoby, who's in the UFC now, in the semifinals, and outpointing Shahak Papayan in the final. Alex embodied everything you don't want to see in the guy you're about to fight. From his size to his skills, Alex was on a path he never thought possible when he was young working in that tire shop. Later that year, he took part in Glory 17 Los Angeles middleweight tournament where he faced the Russian beast Artem Levin in the quarterfinals but lost by unanimous decision. This loss only made him more determined to focus on his craft, improve his skills, and become as good as he needs to be to accomplish his goals. Pereira kept grinding in kickboxing, winning the WGP middleweight title against Cesar Almada, and even defending it with a KO win against Macron Silva at WGP KB40. And here's where things get even more interesting. This was when, for the first time, Pereira fought UFC champion Israel Adesanya twice, defeating him once by unanimous decision and once by a brutal counter left hook that left Israel KO'd on the floor, needing an oxygen bag. He also had some insane battles with Yusri Belagur, eventually facing off for the middleweight title at Glory 55 in Madison Square Garden. Pereira showed his knockout power once again, dropping Belguri with a vicious overhand right in the very first round. Pereira went on to have a successful kickboxing career as champion, but realized that there wasn't enough money in it for him to really provide for his family the way he dreams of doing. This is when he began to switch gears to MMA. Pereira made his pro debut in 2015 at Jungle Fight 82. He lost by submission. He bounced back with 2 straight wins, showing off his striking skills with a KO and TKO victory. In 2020, Pereira signed with Legacy Fighting Alliance and made a killer debut with a first-round knockout against Thomas Powell. It was around this time that Pereira saw an infamous video from the UFC middleweight champ, Israel Adesanya, who was boasting about where he was in comparison to Alex. Now this is where things got even more personal.
He watches all my fights, and every time I fight, like clockwork, he'll try and put something out like, I beat this guy. But I've never ever watched any of his fights, ever. So at the end of the day, no one knows who the he is. And he's gonna be that guy when I'm world champion, when I'm a legend. He's gonna be at some pub talking but I beat that guy one time.
Alex had to sit back and watch as Israel beat Robert Whittaker twice, Marvin Vettori twice, Paulo Costa once, Jared Cannonier once, among many other of the middleweight contenders. Alex, knowing he has this guy's number, he's already beaten him twice in kickboxing, knew that he had to go join the UFC because what better way for him to accomplish his goals than to go beat Israel Adesanya one more time. In September 2021, Pereira joined the UFC, and man, did he make a splash. He faced Andreas Michailidis, and that fight was intense. Pereira showed his striking prowess, landing brutal kicks and punches. In the second round, he connected with a vicious combination that sent Michailidis crashing to the canvas, earning a TKO win and a Performance of the Night award in his UFC debut. It was unclear exactly how quickly the UFC planned on rushing Alex to the top, but what was very clear is that he was here for one reason: to hunt down and give Israel Adesanya the fight that the fans wanted to see. Up until this point, Israel was outclassing all the middleweight fighters in the striking department, using his size and reach, dominating to the point where his fights were becoming boring. The UFC needed a valid contender to take him on. Alex got right back in the gym, preparing his MMA skills for the eventual matchup of him versus Israel Adesanya. He knows Israel's going to try to mix it up because he was unsuccessful in the first 2 times they met. With Alex being at such a disadvantage in his mixed martial arts skills compared to the other UFC top contenders, he needed a good mentor to help him catch up to speed. Thankfully for him, Glover Teixeira, UFC legend and grappling expert, took Alex under his wing to help give him all the tools and knowledge he's going to need to climb his way to the top of the middleweight division. And there we had it. Alex's next fight was booked. It's against the talented striker Bruno Silva. This was to test if Alex was really the real deal. And this was a striking masterclass, with both fighters trading heavy shots, but Pereira's precision and power proved too much for Silva. After 3 rounds of relentless action, Pereira emerged victorious by unanimous decision. There was a big problem with getting Alex to the top of the division. There was a lot of bad stylistic matchups for him. You don't want to put him in there against Marvin just yet. You don't want to put him in there against Robert. So who are you going to give him that will give him that name value so he can leapfrog the other contenders and go straight to the top? And you know what the UFC said? we have a guy for that. And his next fight was an absolute barn burner against Sean Strickland at UFC 276. Right from the start, the two warriors exchanged vicious strikes, testing each other's chin and resilience. In the first round, Pereira landed a thunderous left hook that sent Strickland crashing to the mat unconscious. Nobody in the UFC had ever done this to Strickland before, and this showcased to fans the phenomenal power and finishing ability that Pereira possesses. And that impressive win earned him the next shot at Adesanya. It was very fast to rush him up the rankings like this. You've almost never seen it before. But up until now, there was nobody that the fans could even imagine would be able to take on Israel Adesanya, let alone finish him. But now we have our guy. In one of the most epic encounters in MMA history, Alex Pereira faced off against Israel Adesanya in their first MMA fight. This battle was a testament to the heart, determination, and grit of both fighters, because losing was not an option for either man. From the opening bell, it was clear that this would be a war for the ages. Pereira running at Adesanya, throwing a flying kick to set the tone right away. Adesanya's striking was crisp and precise as he picked apart Pereira's defenses, landing brutal combinations and showing his incredible speed and agility, while for the first time with Adesanya, Alex was not backing down. He was matching the pace, landing the harder shots, and reminding Adesanya who the bully in this matchup really is. Though for the next 3 rounds, it seemed that Adesanya was getting the better of those exchanges. He was edging closer to victory, and entering the 5th round, Adesanya had turned to be a massive favorite on the live odds. People were starting to write out Alex Pereira, but not his coach. His coach and him knew exactly what was about to happen. Entering the 5th and final round, Alex's coach knew they were behind on the scorecards. With urgency in his voice, he implored Pereira to go for the knockout, reminding him that the only way to secure the victory was to finish the fight. As the 5th round began, Pereira dug deep, refusing to accept defeat. He pressed forward, cutting off the stage and trapping Adesanya against the fence. With nowhere to go, Adesanya braced himself for the incoming storm. Alex unleashed a furious barrage of punches, each one landing with devastating force. It was clear that he had tapped into a reservoir of determination and power that few fighters possess. Adesanya, known for his elusive footwork and head movement, struggled to avoid the relentless attack. Alex continued to pour on the pressure, landing blow after blow. And finally, the ref saw enough. With Adesanya unable to defend himself effectively, the ref stepped in and called a halt to the action, declaring Alex Pereira the victor by TKO. It was an incredible comeback win for Alex, a testament to his warrior spirit, and a moment that would define his career forever. The victory over Adesanya not only cemented Pereira's status as a force to be reckoned with within the world of MMA, but also set the stage for their highly anticipated rematch. Everybody's hyped for the rematch between Pereira and Adesanya. And at UFC 287, we're getting our wish. Pereira and Adesanya are going to be battling for the 4th time, 2nd time in MMA on April 8th, 2023. The stakes are high as these two striking wizards strike off once again, likely for the final time for the UFC Middleweight Championship. Both fighting for their legacy, fighting for their family, and fighting for their honor. Alex Pereira's journey from a young alcoholic to being on top of the MMA world is incredibly inspiring. He's faced so many challenges and had some insane battles along the way, showing his will to never quit on himself. This is why, as long as there's time left on the clock, Pereira can never be counted out. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you guys consider subscribing and checking out all my other UFC 287 content.